afternoon, and welcome to BlackBerry's business update call. My name is Alicia, and I'll be your conference moderator for today's call. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen only mode. We will be facilitating a brief question and answer session towards the end of the conference. Should you need assistance during the call, please signal a conference specialist by pressing star, then zero. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded for replay purposes. Now, I would like to turn the call over to Martha Gonder, Director of Investor Relations, BlackBerry. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Alicia. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining today's business update call. Joining me on today's call is BlackBerry CEO John Giamatteo and BlackBerry CFO Tim Foote. This call is available to the general public via call-in numbers and via webcast in the investor information section at BlackBerry.com. A replay will also be available on the BlackBerry.com website. Some of the statements we'll be making today constitute forward-looking statements and are made pursuant to the safe harbor provisions of applicable U.S. and Canadian securities laws. We'll indicate forward-looking statements by using words such as expect, will, should, model, intend, believe, and similar expressions. Forward-looking statements are based on estimates and assumptions made by the company in light of its experience and its perception of historical trends, current conditions, and expected future developments, as well as other factors that the company believes are relevant. Many factors could cause the company's actual results or performance to differ materially from those expressed or implied by the forward-looking statements. These factors include the risk factors that are discussed in the company's annual filings and MD&A, as well as risks associated with our ability to consummate the sale of the Cylance business on time and on the timeline anticipated or at all. You should not place undue reliance on the company's forward-looking statements. Any forward-looking statements are made only as of today, and the company has no intention and undertakes no obligation to update or revise any of them, except as required by law. And with that, I'll turn the call over to John.
Thanks, Martha, and thanks to everyone for joining today's call. Earlier today, we announced the significant strategic pivot for BlackBerry with the signing of a definitive agreement with Arctic Wolf for the sale of the Cylance business. We believe that this transaction will be a true win-win for all relevant stakeholders. BlackBerry and its shareholders win in a number of ways. First, as described at our Investor Day in October, despite having some truly pioneering technology, Cylance is currently subscale and therefore generating meaningful losses for us. This sale transaction will quickly resolve the majority of those losses and materially improve BlackBerry's profitability and cash flow generation. Second, we will receive a meaningful amount of consideration. The cash portion of the deal is $160 million, which, after purchase price adjustments totaling approximately $40 million, means BlackBerry will receive approximately $120 million in additional cash. These proceeds will significantly strengthen our balance sheet and allow us to fast-track our capital allocation priorities. Further, BlackBerry will receive approximately 5.5 million shares in Arctic Wolf, a fast-growing, exciting leader in the cybersecurity space. And third, the sale will allow BlackBerry to focus its operations and capital allocation more clearly on its main growth engines, in particular our market-leading QNX business and portfolio of secure communications solutions. Arctic Wolf also wins by adding Cylance's pioneering AI ML technology to its open XDR Aurora platform, bolstering its position as a market-leading cybersecurity platform provider. Arctic Wolf has a significant go-to-market reach in cybersecurity, far larger than that of BlackBerry. In addition, Arctic Wolf's expertise and dedication to the cybersecurity market will benefit Cylance's customers through continuity of service and enhanced offerings as Arctic Wolf incorporates the advanced Cylance endpoint security capabilities into their platform. We're incredibly grateful to our Cylance employees for all the tremendous progress that they've made in recent quarters and are excited that Arctic Wolf wants to bring a significant number of them on board at the close of the transaction. In light of the deal, our cyber team is currently actively planning to reshape itself to maximize the exciting opportunities we have within the secure communications portfolio. The business in this portfolio have many common characteristics, including a strong emphasis on security and operational resilience. Further, the customer base of UEM, AtHoc, and SecuSmart is skewed towards stable, leading government agencies. With a strong focus on the remaining portfolio, we look to drive stability and strong EBITDA margins. The deal is subject to customary closing conditions, and we expect to close in our current fourth fiscal quarter. Let me now hand over to Tim for some further comments on the financial aspects of the deal.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to echo John's comments about this being a transformational step for BlackBerry. The company has taken a decisive step forward, firmly in line with the strategy we outlined in October at our Investor Day. Let me double-click on some of the key terms of the deal. The cash component of the deal that John mentioned earlier will be received in two parts. The first is approximately $80 million of cash due at close, being $100 million less estimated purchase price adjustment. The second is approximately $40 million 1 year post-close, being $60 million less adjustment. Further, BlackBerry will receive 5.5 million shares in Arctic Wolf. For accounting purposes and recording them in our books, we will use an approach typical for valuing private company equity. This approach is usually based on a number of relatively prudent assumptions. As John mentioned, Arctic Wolf is an exciting company, and we believe there could be significant potential upside to the valuation of the stock over time, including when allowing for the growth that Arctic Wolf hopes to achieve from the addition of Cylance. We believe that having equity of this nature on our balance sheet could provide meaningful value to BlackBerry's shareholders. BlackBerry retains further value by keeping both the Cylance patent as well as significant tax losses from the Cylance business. These NOLs will help shield future profitability for BlackBerry's US operations. Given that during the third quarter, we began the process of exploring opportunities for the Cylance business, which resulted in us entering into a definitive agreement with Arctic Wolf, the Cylance business met the criteria for both classification as held for sale on the balance sheet and presentation as a discontinued operation in the income statement. This means that for our Q3 financial results later this week, GAAP accounting rules require the revenue and all associated costs for Cylance to be presented as a single line item called loss from discontinued operations net of tax. Continuing operations represents the remainder of the business. That is, our newly defined secure communications division, comprising UEM, AtHoc, and SecuSmart, as well as our IoT and licensing division, and will be presented as they normally are on the income statement. And we expect this will show a meaningfully stronger level of profitability for our go-forward business. So let me now turn the call back over to John.
Thanks, Tim. This transaction is very exciting and will accelerate the significant progress the company has already made towards profitability and positive cash flow generation. We are delighted to be partnering with Arctic Wolf, and we look forward to closing the transaction this quarter. So let's now move to Q&A. Alicia, could you please open up the lines?
Of course. We will now begin the question and answer session. To ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. Please make sure your line is unmuted. Again, press star 1 to ask a question. We'll pause just for a moment to allow everyone an opportunity to signal for questions. We request that you limit yourself to one question and one follow-up. Thank you. Our first question comes from the line of Todd Coupland with CIBC. Please proceed.
Oh, yes. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you loud and clear.
Oh, perfect. So, Tim, I'm just wondering if you can help me with some back-of-the-envelope math on your Q3 profitability point. I think at the analyst day, you had indicated that Cylance was losing about $51 million annually. Would it be appropriate to divide by 4 and add that to consensus EBITDA expectations for Q3 to get a rough idea on the improved profitability? Maybe take us through some thoughts on that. Thanks.
Yeah, so what I'll say, Todd, we're 2 days away from earnings on Thursday, so I don't really want to kind of get too much into that ahead of that call. So why don't we put a pin in that for 2 days, and we'll talk about it more on Thursday.
Fair enough. Second question, on valuing Arctic Wolf, there's been some recent private valuations of around $8 a share. Is that a number that's appropriate to use from our perspective?
Yeah, so when it comes to the accounting, Todd, obviously we have to record at our assessment of fair value. And this is a private company, so obviously there's no clear mark. It's a judgment call ultimately at the end of the day. As you probably expect from us, we're going to be at the prudent end of the scale when we put the value into our balance sheet, which would put it sort of around about 18-19 million kind of mark. But equally, you could take a more market-based approach using various multiples that could put fair value much higher than that, towards more like a 50 million mark. So there is a range of values, but ultimately we see this as a very exciting company to be partnered with, and we think having these shares on our balance sheet offers us significant potential upside going forward into the future.
Last quick question, if I could. You have 3 remaining cyber assets. Thoughts on whether those are going to stay as part of BlackBerry, or could they also be put under more active strategic review? Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks for the questions. As far as the remaining components that make up the secure communications part of the portfolio, we are very focused on execution, driving those businesses forward. As we've indicated before, they're pretty stable, they're pretty profitable. They generate solid profit and cash for us to use for other capital allocation priorities. So I would say for the time being, we are focused and committed to driving that business forward and executing on it. But obviously you have to throw the little caveat out there. If something did come our way and there was opportunities to increase shareholder value by some other means throughout the portfolio, it's something we'd certainly take a look at.
Great. Appreciate the color, John. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Todd.
you. Our next question comes from the line of Kingsley Crane with Canaccord Genuity. Please proceed.
Hi, thank you. So, was hoping if you could talk more about the ongoing partnership efforts between you and Arctic Wolf that will, continue as a result of the transaction in terms of go-to-market and, of course, with your vested interest owning some of their shares.
Yeah, thanks, Kingsley. I will tell you one of the things that as we worked with the Arctic Wolf team and did more diligence and learned more about each other and our goals and aspirations, we definitely believe there's opportunities for us to do more together. I think the most obvious one is we do have some big government contracts and relationships that are going to rely on some of the Cylance technology for us to meet our obligations. So our agreement and partnership, taking that into consideration through a reseller relationship and a partnership that we're going to have on an ongoing basis. At the same point, as a shareholder of 5.5 million shares of a high-flying cybersecurity, anything that we can do to help the company, and whether that's through our go-to-market, whether that's through some of our channel relationships. They have a very robust channel ecosystem that has significant amount of scale. I mean, scale that's even much further beyond us. So anything that we can do, we're absolutely lean into it to try to help them be successful and drive the business forward. But the other side of it is just them, the technology, us having access to ensuring that we meet the obligation with some of our larger government customers is probably the other aspect which we've taken care of as part of this agreement.
Great. That's really encouraging to hear. And as a follow-up, I was hoping you could talk more about the reshaped cyber team. Curious if you're retaining some of the senior leaders that have been associated more closely with the endpoint product in Cylance and just how you're thinking about the human capital division in general.
I would tell you, Kingsley, we are knee-deep in that exercise right now, kind of fine-tuning our business plan for next year for the security, secure communications, what's going to be left and held back as part of the BlackBerry organization. And as naturally as you would imagine, there's going to be a significant number of resources going over to join forces with the Arctic Wolf team. And there will be some, but I would tell you, the people that will be going over, they're kind of the Cylance subject matter experts, so it's where they belong as far as the overall deal and where the talent and resources should be.
Okay, that makes sense. We'll stay posted on that one. Thanks again.
Thanks, Kingsley.
Thanks, Kingsley.
Thank you. Our next question comes from the line of Paul Tibber with RBC Capital Markets. Please proceed.
Hey, Paul, are you there?
Paul, please make sure your line is unmuted.
Hopefully we haven't lost Paul.
While we're waiting, if anyone has any other questions, please press star one at this time.
Okay.
We may have lost Paul here.
That's a shame. Okay. All right. Well, if there's no further questions, then
Thanks everybody for joining us. And as Tim mentioned before, please be on the lookout for our Q3 earnings. That's going to be coming out later this week on Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So look forward to giving you a comprehensive update on the overall operations of the company. Details for how you can join this call can be found on our investor relations website. So thanks again for joining today, and See you all on Thursday.
This concludes today's call. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. You may now disconnect.